What's up, everybody? Jaspreet Singh here, and the last couple of days have been absolutely crazy in the global economy. First, if we start off with Europe, Europe could potentially be facing their worst energy crisis ever right now because first, Russia really toned down how much gas, natural gas, that they were sending over to Europe when the war started. But then just yesterday, the Nord Stream, which is a pipeline that sends gas, natural gas from Russia to Germany, was shut down. Now, it was temporarily shut down due to maintenance issues, but the worry is that it is not just temporarily shut down, and this could be a way that Russia is trying to start an economic war with Europe. Then if we go a little bit further, you have the euro versus the dollar now essentially being equal. This is the first time this has happened in about 2 decades, showing that the European economy and currency is really weakening and they're facing a lot of issues across the entire continent over there. China is having their own fair share of issues because a number of banks in China have been facing a liquidity crisis, meaning they are literally running out of cash. And there were a number of banks in China that essentially said you can no longer get your cash out of the bank anymore. So they froze your withdrawals, they froze your cash. And many people were upset, obviously, because millions and millions of dollars were frozen. So people started protesting. And when they started protesting, they were attacked by the government. So it created a whole lot of unrest there in China. But then it gets even worse. Sri Lanka is now in just utter chaos and collapse. So if you remember a little while ago, Sri Lanka defaulted on their national debts, meaning the government had spent so much more money than they brought in that they could no longer make their national debt payments. And so now they were forced to default. And over the last couple of days, there's just been so much civil unrest that people took over the Capitol building, and then people took over their prime minister's home. They took over their president's home. They have forced their prime minister to resign, and the president also said that he is going to resign. And this is as a result of all the inflation and because of all the government spending, and it has led to a collapse of the Sri Lankan economy because they declared default, and it's just a mess over there where not only are they facing super high inflation, but the economy is in shambles. People are struggling finding food, people are struggling making money, a bunch of issues there. And then now it's come out that Pakistan, or Pakistan as some people like to call it, I call it Pakistan, but Pakistan is now also on the verge of a financial default because of all the financial issues going on with the government. So a lot of issues over there. And if I go back just a little bit to the European energy crisis, the reason why this is so important with everything going on with Germany is because Germany has, I'm reading a quote here, they have the biggest population in Europe, it's the biggest economy, and it's the biggest gas consumer. And so now that Russia has turned off this pipeline of natural gas, it's been really affecting countries in Europe, especially Germany, because, well, Germany's getting it, they're the biggest consumer of it, and they just don't have the ability to produce their own gas right now because they've been so reliant on Russia for energy. One of the biggest landlords in Europe actually came out in Germany. He told their tenants that they're no longer going to be able to turn their heat up above a certain degree just because there's not enough energy and gas available to continue running their operations. And they're entering winter over there, so as it's getting colder, people are worried. Is this a war tactic by Russia to hurt Germany, to hurt Europe, or is this really just a 10-day maintenance like they say? So we're not going to know until the 10 days are done, but the whole idea is that right now this pipeline is shut for 10 days due to maintenance. But everyone is worried, what if it isn't just 10 days? What if Russia continues to shut down as a way to kind of continue this economic warfare? So this is something that you want to pay attention to, and we did cover this in Market Briefs. So if you haven't subscribed yet, Market Briefs is the free financial newsletter that I created where my team breaks down the top finance news, the top business news into a fun, witty, and easy to read email. I promise you, if you're looking for an easy way to stay up to date on what's happening, you are going to love Market Briefs because we focus in on the financial news and we make sure it's super easy to read. So if you want to join Market Briefs, it's completely free. I'll put the link to how you can do it down in the description below. This brings me to what's happening here in the United States, which has also been very interesting over the last 24 hours. So first, Goldman Sachs came out, the big investment banking firm on Wall Street, and they said, no, we're not in a recession right now. They said that because of the jobs report that came out last week that I talked about, we are not in a recession right now. However, we could potentially enter a recession in 2023. I believe they said it's something like a 30% chance of a recession in 2023. I could be mistaken about the percentage, but if my memory serves me correctly, they're saying that there's a chance we can enter it in 2023. And right after that report came out about Goldman Sachs, there was a new housing market report that came out, which said that now home buyers are canceling their contracts to buy homes at the fastest rate that we've seen since the start of the pandemic. And the number one reason for that is the higher mortgage rates. People are expecting a certain mortgage rate. They're expecting to pay $1,500 a month to buy a certain home. Then they get closer to the closing date and then they find out what their new mortgage rate is. And then they realize, oh, it's not going to cost me $1,500 a month. It's going to cost me $1,850 a month because of the higher interest rates. And so people are saying, I don't want to, or I can't afford these higher payments. So then they're backing away, canceling contracts. And we've been seeing this grow pretty quickly. And this trend doesn't look like it's slowing down. And this is happening right now, although mortgage rates have come down since their peak. So in June, middle part of June, that was when the Federal Reserve Bank last raised interest rates. That was the mid-June. And after that, mortgage rates spiked up because banks got worried of everything going on with the Fed. And since that big spike up in the end of June, they've started to come down. And so mortgage rates have come down quite a bit. However, you can expect that in the end of this month, end of July 2022, the Fed is going to probably, it's like 99.9% sure, they're probably going to increase interest rates again. They've come out publicly and said that they plan on increased interest rates. They say that they want to increase it by 0.5% to 0.75%. This is what they've publicly come out and said. Now, of course, we don't know for sure what they're going to do until they actually do it. They're expected to meet towards the end of this month in July. And so when they increase interest rates again, then you can expect that to cause mortgage rates to go up even higher, maybe spike even higher than they were before, because now interest rates are going to be even higher. And so that's going to affect the housing market even more. So that's something that you want to be aware of. So if you are planning on buying a home, try to lock in your rates sooner rather than later before interest rates go up, and just understand how this is going to affect the housing market, the economy. I've made tons of videos talking about this. So one thing to pay attention to, but the factor that the Fed is going to be looking at when they decide how much or how aggressively to raise interest rates is going to be the inflation report, which is released this week. I think it's actually released tomorrow. And so in the inflation report that comes out tomorrow on July 13th, the Federal Reserve Bank is going to see how high inflation is. If inflation is worse than expected, then that's going to be more fuel for the Federal Reserve Bank to raise interest rates even more aggressively. The more aggressively they raise interest rates, the worse that is for the stock market, the worse that is for the housing market, the worse that is for cryptocurrency, the worse that is for the economy. So those are the things that you want to pay attention to, and I will definitely be keeping you posted on that inflation report on our channel and market briefs, which is why if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that. And this brings me to Elon Musk. I'm not going to go too deep into this because, we're not a channel covering Elon Musk's life. However, kind of an interesting journey where Elon Musk wanted to purchase Twitter, and that was when everybody, including Twitter's board, said no. You can't purchase it. Then after a lot of public sentiment and a lot of media, the board said, okay, you can purchase Twitter. Then Elon Musk said, tell me how many bots that you have on the platform. And that was when the Twitter board said no. And this is where there's some disagreement. Some people say that it was Elon Musk's way of trying to back out of the deal. Some people say that no, he really did want to know what's going on with the bots. It's kind of irrelevant if you just want to understand what's going on. Anyways, the Twitter board said, no, we're not going to give you all this information. And Elon Musk said, well, I'm not going to pay you all this money for the company because I don't think the company is worth this much because you have so many bot users, you have so many fake users, and this is driving up a fake valuation of the company. So he said, I don't want to buy the deal. So as soon as he said he didn't want to buy it, that's when the board now started threatening a lawsuit to force Elon Musk to purchase the company, even though originally they didn't want him to buy it in the first place. And then Elon Musk put out his meme saying, well, now you want to force me to buy the company in court. And when you take me to court to buy the company, you're going to be forced to disclose how many bots there are on Twitter. So kind of a funny turn of events. I mean, it's a private market deal. It's not a deal funded by the government. So it's just interesting to watch it as something that you want to be aware of. We do cover that in market briefs if you are unaware. And the last thing that I want to mention about here in the United States before I go over the things that you need to do is there was an article that came out just yesterday talking about now how the European energy crisis could affect the United States. And there's a number of different ways. I mean, obviously, when you see all this stuff happening overseas, you see what's happening in China, you see what's happening in Sri Lanka, you see what's happening in Pakistan, you see what's happening in Japan right now, you see what's happening in Europe, and you see all this unrest, you gotta be worried about what's happening here in the United States because yes, while some of the countries had way more inflation, more money printing, more issues than we did, we also have a lot of high inflation that we have to deal with, and we don't want to deal with the same issues as them. However, more on a spending side of the United States government, it was, I don't know if this was public before, but an article came out that was showing that when Europe was facing the energy crisis in June, President Biden sent over millions of barrels of oil from the United States to Europe. And the whole idea was the United States was also facing an energy crisis during that time. Not as bad, nowhere near as bad, but we had expensive gas, like $5 a gallon across the country. And even during that high gas price time, we were still sending oil to other countries trying to help them out. So the worry and concern is if the European issue gets worse, are we going to get more involved in giving our own resources, whether it's money, whether it's natural resources, to other countries, and how is that going to affect us? So that's one thing that you want to be aware of. Not really anything that I'm trying to say is going to happen one way or the other, but something that you want to be aware of, things that you want to think about. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, just like the other videos that I've said, first, you want to be aware of what's happening. But second, the key is you don't want to be a short-term minded investor. I want you to be a long-term minded investor. What that means is just think about, where are we going to be in 5 years? Where are we going to be in 10 years? Are we still going to be a strong country? Chances are, yeah, we are. And so if that's the case, you want to be looking for opportunities that come your way. And so this is where you want to look for assets, investments that go on sale. That way you can purchase these assets at a discounted price and become wealthier because now you can buy more assets since you're buying them at a discount. This is where more millionaires are made than any other time. But this requires you to be patient because if you're looking to make your money back in 6 months, you're going to get scared, you're going to panic, you're going to get greedy, and you're going to lose money. However, if you have that patience and you have the ability to hold on to investments for the long term, you can do that research, well then these types of markets create more opportunity than any other time. But you have to be willing to hold on to your investments, find good investments, and be a long-term patient investor. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see my step-by-step guide on how you can become a millionaire during a recession, I made a video covering this and you can watch this video by clicking that button right over there. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling. It ultimately comes down to one thing: buying good assets at a discounted price. Because when you have these types of market crashes and recessions,